urayishakira muri Play Store cyangwa App Store. Andikamo RBA ushakishe wahageze. Ishimire application ya RBA aho usanga amakuru ndetse ukanahasanga radiyo zose za RBA, amakuru y'urukundo, amakuru ya siporo, ay'imyidagaduro. Application ya RBA urayisanga kuri
A very good evening and thank you for joining me for RTV News. My name is William Evans. Tonight we have a number of stories coming up. We also have guests for you, but first let's have a look at the headlines. Rwanda Mukagasana, a writer on the history of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, has called for urgent inaction to educate youths against genocide ideology to ensure a unified and ethnic division-free Rwanda. While Rwanda National Police says it is vigilant to identify and apprehend individuals committing crimes of denial, minimization, and spreading genocide ideology, whether through words, writing, or social media. On the international scene in Ireland, a new survey is revealing shocking levels of anti-Semitism among its Christians. Of course, it's always a pleasure having you join us for RTV News. Like I said earlier, later on, we shall be having a conversation with two guests from the UNDP's Office of Chief Digital in the New York. But to begin our news tonight, let's begin with Rwanda Mukagasana, a writer on the history of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, believes that it is important to intensify efforts in teaching young people to fight against genocide ideology. She says that this is now a good time and a good way to build a country free from ethnic divisions in the future. Enora Gladys.
These are children in a forum established by Rwanda Mukagasana in Nyamata, Bugesera district. This is a platform that this writer chose to teach young people about Rwanda's history. The genocide had a greater negative impact on the youth than on us, and that is why the youth today should fight against genocide ideology. For me, I consider it as a drug that encompasses other harmful substances, because when you're exposed to hate ideology, it's like being given a drug. We fight against cannabis or other drugs, but we don't put enough efforts into fighting the drug of genocide ideology. Rwanda Mukagasana says that this decision was driven by the history she experienced during the genocide against the Tutsi. When you look back and consider the consequences of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, can you tell if there is anyone who was not affected by it? There are children who lost their parents because they survived while they were very young. I remember when we reached the RPF zone, where others were looking for something to eat, I was desperately looking for a pen and a notebook to start writing. And that's how I ended up writing. Personally, I wouldn't say I'm a writer, I would say I'm a witness. This writer says that writing books is an ongoing struggle to fight those who deny the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. Apart from the 30 years and others, we will continue fighting, because when you look at the genocide of the Jews, today, do you know that there are people who still deny that the genocide of the Jews happened? Therefore, we too will not stop fighting those who deny it. Highlighting the truth about the history of the genocide against the Tutsi, she says she has faced challenges, including some foreigners attempting to distort the history of the genocide. There were times I was treated badly visibly, to the point where I couldn't even ask an appointment with the authorities. I faced challenges from the media and even international institutions trying to silence the true history of the genocide against the Tutsi. In fact, there was nothing they didn't do to try to prevent me from speaking the truth about the genocide against the Tutsi. But it was something I had committed to doing no matter the challenges. I once wrote a book that the French people refused to let be published in English, even though it was released in other languages such as the Hebrew, Norwegian, Turkish and others, but they fought to prevent it from being published in English. When you look at it, they did everything possible to ensure that the English-speaking world would not know the full truth about what happened in Rwanda and the role played by the Europeans in the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994 in Rwanda. In the books she has written, Yolande Mukagasana particularly highlights how the international community abandoned Rwanda during the genocide against the Tutsi, especially in her book titled L'ONU et le chagrin d'une négresse, The UN and the Sorrow of a Black Woman in English, a book that some people from France and Belgium refused to have published. Enra Gladys, RwandaTV News.
And now, Rwanda National Police says that it is vigilant in order to identify and apprehend individuals committing crimes of denial, minimization, and spreading genocide ideology, whether through words, writing, or on social media. The spokesperson of the Rwanda National Police, ACP Boniface Rutikanga, told RBA that even though these crimes have been decreasing over the years, they persist in some areas, and therefore the police will never tolerate these who engage in such behaviors, regardless of where they are. We do have a report. Our operations keep changing with the changing times and development. I can confidently say that several genocide memorial sites have been put in place and are all well maintained and safe for everyone who will be participating. To be honest, this has been helpful. In addition, we have noted a decrease in the cases relating to genocide denial and other related crimes. This reduction is attributed to the continued awareness against genocide denial ideologies and related crimes, but also a number of people have come to know the punishments against such crimes by the law. The changing times have also led to the emergence of social media and how fast information is spread. Here, some people have resorted to social media to deny or downplay the genocide against the Tutsi, knowingly or otherwise. I want to take this moment to caution especially the young people who are not familiar with the usage of certain terms and their implication. It is important that you seek clarity before saying certain things because they might result into criminal offenses punishable by the law. Young people are especially encouraged to follow to the dot the guidelines issued by the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement. Those who spread genocide ideologies and denial on social media, if you're critical, you will notice they do not even use their real names. Several of them use anonymous accounts, and this means that such individuals are doing this deliberately and as something they have planned. Many of these are in foreign countries, but some we know are here. What we are doing together with others, including the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement, is to teach youths, especially those born after 1994, who are not familiar with the genocide against the Tutsi history. The focus is to encourage them to fight against genocide denial against the Tutsi, genocide ideology, and ethical divisionism. Of course, just like I told you earlier on, we are going to be having a conversation with UNDP's Alexander and Jennifer Louis, who are from the UNDP's Chief Digital Office in New York. Jennifer is in charge of AI Safety and Trust, while Mr. Alex is the Global AI Capability Leader in UNDP. Most welcome to RwandaTV News.
Thank you for having us.
Great to be here.
I understand you've been here for the AI Global Summit. I want to first begin by picking your thoughts on what went well, what did you notice so far?
It was incredibly exciting. I think it's set up that Africa is definitely going to be one of the global leaders in artificial intelligence. There was so much energy and such a strong AI community here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of incredible optimism around the AI opportunity for Africa. We saw stakeholders coming from policy circles, civil society, private sector, really showing an incredible enthusiasm and excitement around AI for Africa.
Of course, we are going to have a conversation, basically AI, trust, and safety. I'll begin, of course, with the expert, Jennifer, who is in charge of AI, trust, and safety. In terms of description, what would we say, how do we describe AI safety and trust?
Sure. Trust and safety is all about how it is that you feel that you trust or feel safe using digital technologies. It includes child safety, fraud, and also disinformation. So anytime you engage or get information from a digital technology, including artificial intelligence, do you trust the information that it's giving you? Do you feel that it's biased? Do you feel that it's actually accurate to how you understand the world? And does it give you an answer that feels like it will be helpful to you, or that it could be harmful to you?
Maybe if Alex can chip in terms of the most critical challenges facing AI safety and trust, if you can chip in a bit from your experience. Of course, I know you've had such an experience.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I think a lot of the challenges that we're seeing, and for some context, UNDP has launched a global call around AI trust and safety, for which we received over 200 applications, a third of which were from the African continent, which not only, I think, shows the immense amount of potential and enthusiasm and innovation that's happening here in Africa, but also shows a whole set of priorities and safety risks and harms that perhaps, you know, us in New York City or in the United States or the global north aren't even aware of. So these can be problems ranging from gender-based violence to fraud, to a range of issues. So these are some of the critical challenges that we're seeing in our work at UNDP.
I was earlier having I think the other day over the summit, I was having a conversation with Jennifer, and she was telling me how sometimes AI can either be suggestive or we want to kind of dive into that. How do we position ourselves as a content, but as also a people with these emerging technologies? How do we best position ourselves to make sure that safety and trust are priority from the frameworks, the policies, but also daily use? I mean, the very last person, the consumer. How do we best position ourselves?
You know, at the conference, someone had asked whether or not when we deal with things like trust and safety or data, is Africa seen as a market or is it seen as a partner? And I think that we should always see Africa and any person who uses technology as a real person and as part of our community. So I think it's important that people report things, but also that you start looking for the solutions and building them here. That local experiences matter in how it is that we understand and try to use technologies, and your position is super important in that. I'm excited for the new technologies and especially the AI that's coming out of Africa right now. I think it's going to be certainly more fair and will be less biased, and it will be really exciting to see how that's going to be very innovative. I don't think innovation is really innovation unless it is challenging the problems of our past. And one of our greatest problems with AI or any digital technology is inequality.
I'll still closer over to Alex as the global AI capability lead at UNDP, of course, doing lots of great stuff. From where she ended, what is your take from where you sit? How do we ensure that we build robust frameworks that protect users, while fostering innovation, of course, and looking at the growth that, you know, Africa is now on the move. This is the time. It's actually, I've heard people say it's no longer AI, it's no longer artificial intelligence, but African
intelligence,
innovation. So
yeah.
How do we build robust frameworks to make sure that protection is all through, from the creators, from the innovators, but also the consumers?
I mean, it's a great question, and I love the reframing and rebranding that we saw at this conference or this summit over the last few days around AI being African intelligence or African innovation. I think frameworks are important, regulatory regimes are important, but with any emerging technology, it's incredibly difficult to regulate. It moves too quickly, and policy instruments just, in most cases, aren't really set up to really regulate. So a lot of the work that Jen's speaking about that we're prioritizing at UNDP is in the next generation of African AI innovators, it's instilling the norms, the values, the innovations that really center Africans in artificial intelligence. And to just build on what Jen was speaking about, as we're seeing kind of divestment in trust and safety from major AI companies in the global north, as well as certain governments, there's an incredible opportunity for Africa to really emerge as a leader in AI trust and safety, both from its private sector, but also from its governments, to build strong regulatory regimes where it is appropriate. And there are aspects that can be regulated and frameworks that can be built around data, around privacy, but regulating artificial intelligence is challenging. It's a moving target.
Maybe as we come to the end of this conversation, I just want to pick your mind on one of the most outstanding things that you found in Rwanda, your best highlight while here.
Well, here, honestly, we got to tour the Timbuktu offices and the unipods. That has been the best part of my day, seeing students innovating, coding, trying to problem solve on some really fun problems. It was really lively, really active, and the technology that they have at their fingertips is incredible.
Yes, Alex?
I mean, I think probably the same. Beyond the fact, like, being in Kigali is wonderful. Beautiful city with incredibly lovely people. But I have to agree with Jen. The work that Timbuktu and the UNDP country office is doing here on the ground in Rwanda, through its university pod at University of Rwanda, all the way through its new health tech hub that was just launched in the last few weeks. It's really exciting innovations happening here. And we're excited to be part of it.
Yeah, I'd also just like to add AIMS's incubator launch. That was also just a fantastic start to the week, and really excited by that pitch competition and all of the innovations coming out of here.
Actually, Alex was part of the judge. He was the judge. Do you feel the Rwandan youths have the hunger? Do you see them really,
Yeah, I mean, we had the pleasure to meet a lot of innovators, both at the summit and at the African Institute of Mathematical Sciences incubator launch that, I was privileged to be a judge, and Jen as a keynote speaker. We really want to support those innovators. And to answer your question, there's a lot of amazing ideas, enthusiasm, and as you say, hunger to kind of seize the opportunity and not only build products for Rwanda, but build products across the continent and products for the world.
Many thanks for, of course, allowing to speak to us. That is Alex and Jen. Alex is the AI capability lead at UNDP, while Jennifer is the AI trust and safety expert with UNDP in New York. Now, moving on, Rwanda's foreign exchange reserve has improved, covering 5.4 months of prospective imports of goods and services as of the end of December 2024. This growth is attributed to a robust 6.9% increase in the country's export over the past year. We have more on this report.
Godfrey Gahigi, the manager of Manebu Industries in Kanzenze, Nyamata, reports a surge in their cooking oil production. This oil, which is available domestically and internationally, Gahigi highlights that last year they achieved record export levels, surpassing previous years. We exported to different countries and our export increased by 60%, so our total production volume increased as well. From large-scale industries to small and medium enterprises, production continues to rise across the board. Rafiki Gatsinzi, one of the founders of a small factory specializing in paper processing for export, confirms a notable increase in the paper export compared to the past years.
This
year we plan to expand our market to France and America and to West Africa on a large scale. The optimistic figures are closely aligned with findings from a recent International Monetary Fund review affirming the resilience of Rwanda's economy. Delegates noted that the upward trend indicate heightened confidence and stability, aiding the price control and currency strength. The governor of the Bank of Rwanda emphasized that the strategic measures implemented by the government have been instrumental in driving this impressive growth. They looked at the policies we have in place as a country and predicted that we will maintain the same growth in the next year. The volume of foreign reserves in Rwanda increased from a savings capacity to import goods for about 4.5 months in 2023 to over 5 months and 12 days by the end of 2024. The National Bank desires that these foreign reserve savings should not fall below 4 months.
Mvangiye kubarira rimwe kabiri gatatu itugwamo. So, rimwe kabiri gatatu gwamo. One, bro.
Mbere kanda akanyenyeri gatatu kane gatanu akanyenyeri kabiri urwego maze nawe ugwemo.
Ndanezero umunezero nsaba umutima ndakora akazi kanjye ndacatinga data ntizishira enda nawe gwamo
wikwisondeka.
Nyiri muto arababwiraga data bati ntabwo wagira umukamo mwinshi utunze inkwi, ariko nigeze acika intege. Mama akinjira mu bucuruzi hari abamubwiraga bati ntabwo watera imbere udakorera mu iduka rigezweho, ariko ntibyamusubije inyuma, yakoranaga umwete. Njye muri kaminuza hari abanshidikanyagaho bavuga ko nashobora kaminuza naturuka mu muryango wifashije, ariko byarangiye nanditse amateka mashya. Igihe cyo gutera ishema umuryango wanjye kigeze, bamwe bakomeje kumbwira bati ntabwo watera umuryango wawe ibyishimo n'ishema, ariko narabishoboye. Hari abakekaga ko nasigira umurage ukomeye abankomokaho, ariko ubu mfite uruganda rutunganya amata. Banki ya Kigali yabaye umufatanyabikorwa wanjye mu rugendo rwose, inzozi zanjye ziba impamo. Bigereho.
And of course, welcome back from that very short break as we continue the international scene. A new survey is revealing shocking levels of anti-Semitism amongst Christians in the Republic of Ireland. One of the researchers said that the disturbing findings, it is like we are living in medieval times. CNBN with details.
A new survey is revealing shocking levels of anti-Semitism amongst Christians in the Republic of Ireland. Well, one of the researchers said of the disturbing findings, quote, "It's like we're living in medieval times." Well, Jamie O'Mahony, an Israel activist from Dublin, Ireland, joins us now. Jamie, thanks for coming on, buddy. Well, Jamie, let me read you a couple of the statistics from this finding. It says the study found about 1/3 of Irish Christians believe Jewish people, quote, still talk too much about what happened to them in the Holocaust, and only 11.3% of Irish Christians support Israel in its conflict with Palestinians, compared to the 42.3% of Americans. So, Jamie, do these statistics shock you?
Unfortunately, no. So Ireland has a history of being, I think, by far and away the most anti-Israel country in Europe. And that dates, of course, since the modern founding of the nation state of Israel in 1948. Ireland didn't recognise that country until 1963. We had our Prime Minister during the Second World War signed a book of condolences for Adolf Hitler in the German embassy. And in 1904, which in the city where I'm originally from, Limerick City, we had the Catholic priest of that city basically launch a pogrom against the Jewish families living within Limerick at that time, claiming that Jews were essentially leeches within Limerick, and they needed to be routed out of the city. And unfortunately, he was received with wide acclaim and praise at the time. So this is obviously back. We're talking 100 years ago, and during the Second World War, 80 years ago. But essentially, since not even since October 7th, but over the last few decades, Ireland has basically perpetuated a highly hostile policy to Israel, and since October 7th, that has merely intensified. Unfortunately, those stats are not surprising. I am a part of a group called the Ireland-Israel Alliance, which is essentially a group made up of both Christians and Jews living within Ireland. But sadly, the narrative that we see all over the country, in our local towns, in our cities, across all the 10 political parties within our parliament, it's just basically one-way traffic against the Jewish state. So, look, we're trying to change things on the ground, but it's unfortunately an uphill struggle at the moment.
How have you noticed things change, I suppose, since October 7th?
So a group in particular called the IPSC, the Ireland-Palestine Solidarity Campaign, have really upped their activity. They hold meetings about once a week across a lot of towns and cities across Ireland. A big thing, unfortunately, has been across the Parliament of Ireland. You've had all the political parties from the far left to, there isn't really a far right in Ireland, but from the far left to centrists, we've seen a broad acceptance of the sort of BDS narratives towards Israel, a huge lack of balance. Anything remotely Israel related is seen in a sort of dark or ominous light, unfortunately. This goes back to even a couple of years ago during COVID. A friend of mine was working as a parliamentary assistant, and for example, even Israel's approach towards COVID, which was one of the best in the world regards vaccination rates, that was sort of pushed to the side. And for example, when the Department of Health wanted to look at how they could adopt these approaches domestically, that was pushed to the side because it was an Israeli approach, and thus it was bad. And Israel has unfortunately become a dirty word in this regard. And there's no real mainstream figure that is seen to be a Zionist advocate. Now, obviously, we're trying to change that ourselves, but for the moment, it's been very, very negative. We have blood libels that are, frankly, medieval, being spoken within our Senate. And it really speaks a lot to the fact that the Israeli embassy last December pulled out and said it's simply not worth having an embassy here anymore. And that's very telling when we're one of the only European countries that discussed expelling the Israeli ambassador, and ultimately Gideon Sar, the Israeli foreign minister, felt he had to pull out the embassy from Dublin.
When you look at the United States and you think about, standing with Israel and Jewish people, it's a daunting task, but there are tens of millions of people behind you, I guess you could say. When you're one of a few, what is it like for you when you're being vocal on campus in Ireland, standing with Israel and the Jewish people?
Yeah, so I guess it's pretty hard. A group that I became involved in over the last few months, I'm very grateful for their presence in the United States, and also we're now an international movement. We're in 7 other countries. Students Supporting Israel, a group founded 13 years ago by Ilan Sanelnikov, an Israeli-American. And I have brought this group to Ireland. We were the first, I'm very proud to say, our first Zionist student grouping on a campus in Ireland. But we received an enormous amount of hate and negativity from everyone, from the students to the administration of the university. Yeah, just a real lot of backlash. So it's quite tough, to be honest, and especially when you try and look around. I mean, in America, I'm quite envious sometimes. You know, you have mainstream kind of promotion of Zionism and an acceptance of the fundamental good and the efforts of the Jewish state to defend itself in what I would see as part of a kind of a Western, in many ways a defense of Western civilization against jihadism, against a way of the world that is a view of the world that is very backwards. I'm very thankful to see that in America, with the power that America has. But unfortunately, in Ireland, you simply don't really see that anywhere. And it's tough to see, for example, when your own parliament is doing things like recognising a phantom state of Palestine that has no recognised borders, no recognised government, no recognised capital, and doing things like joining South Africa's genocide case in the International Court of Justice, or opening an embassy in Tehran, of course, capital of Iran, one of the chief adversaries of our free way of life. And we have Irish parliamentarians going to a Houthi conference in Yemen only 2 weeks ago, and on the wall there's literally a slogan saying "Death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews." In Ireland, we have all these things kind of stacking up against us, and one of the most prominent things, and thankfully the new American administration has kind of managed to push the Irish government away from this initiative. A new bill that was brought before the Parliament a couple of years ago, but it's gaining more and more kind of media momentum at the moment, is something called the Occupied Territories Bill. Now, what this would do is essentially criminalise anyone buying or trading in goods and services coming from Judea and Samaria, or the so-called West Bank. So this includes many Christian areas. So this would criminalise any Jewish economic activity within Judea and Samaria. So this is an unprecedented legal bill, and thankfully it has been basically shelved by the Irish government, but it's still on the cards to be passed. And so I'm hoping for a bit of American backing.
Jamie, first off, I just think you are an incredibly brave person, but I also think it is kind of worth noting that it is becoming quote-unquote illegal to have Jewish businesses in Judea, which is just wild. But last question, my brother. Let's say, because here's the thing, I noticed a lot of people that would push back against you, would vehemently disagree with you, honestly don't want to hear what you have to say. So let's say, by some chance, there's someone who just hates everything that you stand for and believes in, and they're Irish, but they're watching this video. And for some reason, they're actually listening this time. What's one thing? We can't go down the myriad of things that we could discuss. What's one thing that you would hope my friend here would at least start to think about?
I guess I really hope they can understand the fight that Israel is up against. They are up against a jihadist, Iranian-backed worldview that would see us as infidels, and have our worldview as basically a lesser form of life. Unfortunately, we're seeing a mass kind of left-wing embracing of this ideology because they happen to hate our way of life, and they are becoming emboldened to do so more and more, unfortunately, by a lack of clamping down on their actions, whether it be protests on the street or on campuses, etc. So I want everyone to kind of appreciate, for me personally, I've always seen Zionism as a very understandable and welcome nationalist movement. Herzl, the writings of Herzl and Jabotinsky, etc. We see a constant rejection of peace. Liberals in particular are deluded by this idea in the West of a two-state solution, when it has become clear time and time again, ever since 1937, from up until 2008 and 2020 with Trump's peace plan, a constant Palestinian rejectionism, of two-state solutions, of viable, credible peace plans that would basically create an Arab independent Palestinian state alongside an independent Jewish state, and it is constantly rejected. And it is simply for the reason of they don't want an independent Palestinian state, they want a state instead of the Jewish state, and they want to replace, and that is ultimately what the slogan "From the River to the Sea" really means.
Yeah, well, Jamie, I so appreciate your time. I know it's late in Europe, so man, I'm just I want you to be encouraged that there are a lot of people watching you right now that are praying for you to continue to be strong and to not stay silent. So, Jamie, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And of course, that brings us to the end of tonight's news. But before you go, let's have a look at the headlines. Yorande Mukagasana, a writer on the history of genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, has called on urgent action to educate youths against genocide ideology to ensure a unified and ethnic division-free Rwanda. Rwanda National Police says it is vigilant to identify and apprehend individuals committing crimes of denial, minimization, and spreading genocide ideology, whether through words, writing, or on social media. And on the international scene, in Ireland, a new survey is revealing shocking levels of anti-Semitism amongst Christians in the Republic of Ireland. Of course, it's always a pleasure having you for RwandaTV News. That was it for tonight's news. My name is William Evans. Have a good night.